Alright, welcome to part 3 with Jerry, and we're going to talk about any topics really on truth, what's going on in the world, and just find out what what you think about what's going on in the sanction process, spiritual stuff, conspiracy theories, 9/11. So the first topic we can pick up on was even the number 13. You building these 13 sites where most people say, well, that's unlucky, number 13. So things have been turned on its head to make them say it's unlucky, but it really isn't, because it's a magical feminine number, I believe, 13, isn't it?
It's the number of the divine goddess, yeah.
So it's been twisted.
I mean, if you look at after conception in the womb, on 49 days, excuse me, on 49 days, a Merkaba appears. 8 little cells, they form a Merkaba. Also on 49 days, dimethyltryptamine, DMT, appears in the womb. 9 and 4 is 13. You know, these numbers aren't by accident. There's actually 13 months in our calendar, but a month was taken away and the other days were divided over the other days, and that's why they're all over the place. It should be 13 times 28. So, yeah.
So somebody out there knows a lot more, and you think they're taking it away from us, the power. So
well, this whole world's inverted.
Yeah.
If they tell you not to look somewhere, you should be looking.
Yes.
You know? So it's like, you know, Friday the 13th, unlucky number 13. They do everything in their power to scare the shit out of us and take us away from it. But we should be using it. I mean, if you look in Freemasonry, it's everywhere, the number 13. So they use it for whatever it is they're using it for, and we're told to stay away from it, just in case we discover its power.
Yes. Okay. Picking up of one of the interviews you've done with, I don't know how many years ago you did it, with the RAF retired pilot.
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago.
2 years. I found that amazing, and I'm not sure if I heard of it before. Where, you want to talk about it? What made you do the interview in the first place? Why did you go? Because you only did it once by the looks.
No, I mean, I interviewed the guy for, I think, 3 days. I went there once and we made like about 11 40-minute, we cut 11 40-minute bits out of the first kind of bit of filming. And then we went again and did some more filming. The third time we were there, it just got too much. I mean, the guy was attacked after the first set of interviews on his way to work. He was beaten. He went into his garden shed and there was a man with a gun. On the third interviews that we did, the third day that we were there, I was with the lady that was filming me, and we were talking about Antarctica, and he was saying something and then he'd repeat it. And then he'd repeat it, and I was like, Trev, you've just told me that. And he was like, oh. Anyway, I looked up and I saw this being that was in the space.
Oh, okay. Big
Green being. And it was just basically, just kept wiping his memory. Each time he'd said a sentence, and he just couldn't, you know, and the interviews became a little bit more stressful. And I mean, the guy's missus was in a wheelchair, being fed through a tube because of what they'd done to her, because of him coming out and spilling the beans and stuff. So, you know, yeah, he just said, I can't do it anymore. He had so much more information to share. The guy was amazing. I mean, telekinesis, he was moving stuff around. He was just an awesome guy. Yeah, and yeah, I've not spoken to him for about 6 months. I should really contact him, you know, and see if he's okay. But yeah, an awesome guy, big heart, but he just had to protect his family, really.
Can you say what his main story was?
Yeah, I mean, he was an RAF pilot. I've got all the interviews on our website. Not all. The last few I've not put up yet because I need to go through them. But he was an RAF pilot, and he got grounded. And the reason he got grounded is because he kept having extraterrestrial encounters when he was flying. What happened? The last straw was he was up in his plane. there was one of his colleagues in another plane, and they're over the south coast of England, and there was a ball of light, and they were told to go and investigate. And his mate went through the ball of light in his plane and came out the other side. But they lost radio contact with him. Anyway, they were told to come back to base. So they flew back to base. Trevor had flown up alongside him, and he was looking in the cockpit and he couldn't see him. Anyway, the plane's flying, they've landed the plane on the ground. He's gone up the steps, cockpit's off, all the seatbelts are in, he buckles, everything. He's just not there, his body's gone. So after this encounter, he was grounded and he was told to shut up and never to speak to anyone about it. He had a background in like anti-gravity and electromagnetics. He was a bit of a wizard. So they put him into the Star Wars project, which was what it was called before it was sold to the American government and became HARP, where they control the weather and that sort of stuff. So he was one of the first people to work on that. He went to Area 51, saw many experiments, you know, humans with extraterrestrials, met different extraterrestrials, saw some high-profile figures in Area 51, had some interesting experiences. He'd been taken to another planet by some Arcturians. They came and got him one night. He was in bed. Some light came down and they brought him up and took him on this journey. And yeah, he's had some crazy experiences. He's met extraterrestrials here in the physical. So yeah, all of these interviews were about his story and just sharing this message, really.
Wow.
The reason I did it is because he contacted me one day and he said, I've done some of your meditations. And he said, you always use this inverted pyramid up above the head, and you're bringing these frequencies down from the Pleiades and different places. He said, I don't know whether you know why you're doing this, but I'm going to tell you just in case you don't. He said, obviously you've been guided. He said, but if you look at the position of our sun, it's central to the Pleiades, and I think it's Arcturus, and it creates this triangle or pyramid or whatever you want to call it. And he said, so he sent me this map. He drew me a map of the galaxy on a piece of paper. It's about this big. I've got it upstairs. I'll show you if you want. But anyway, you see the sun and you see the star systems and how the pyramid. Yeah, it's got where all the beings that live on the different stars, who they all are, like just everything. How many light years away from Earth and how the pyramid would spin and bring these star systems down through the sun into our local environment, into planet Earth, so we can download them in through our physical bodies. So, you know, he said, this is what's actually happened, this is what you're doing, you know. And he said, you're talking about it, but I don't know that you really know that this is the actual truth. So he was telling me, and he started telling me all this sort of stuff, and he, you know, we started talking, he started telling me his story, and I asked him, would you be up for being interviewed? He said, no problem. So I went to his house, and that's how it happens. That's how it started.
Okay, I will put links to it on this YouTube video as well, so people can see it. So that'd be good. Yeah, I really like that one. And that's based in the 80s, would it have been? Or? I'm only saying that there's been stories before where RAF pilots have said they've gone into the sea.
Yeah, I mean, he tells the dates on the video. I mean, he's like must be 60 now, so yeah, he must have been 40, maybe late 70s, early 80s, through the 80s, yeah, something like that.
Okay. No, that's it.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but it's all on the video, so.
Yeah, I will publish those. So going back to maybe Donald Trump, the Space Force thing, are you a believer in this secret space program? And
I don't know when you're bringing Donald Trump into it. I don't really pay any attention to this stuff really anymore, like on the news and stuff. And
he's announced last year actually, and he's actually a couple of days ago he's actually launched. He's got someone in charge of it in general. So they call it the Space Force, but it's basically the secret space program. Yeah. And I've seen the craft. I know what the craft looks like. It's the black triangular craft. I think they call it the 3B craft. I was down in Pewsley camping, and it was a moonlit night, and the Salisbury Plains just off behind me, and the campsite suddenly went quiet. So some children playing. They just went to bed, I guess, and I could see the flares over Salisbury Plain. I was sitting down, getting the binoculars out, and this black triangular craft went, I'm talking about 300 feet above my head, went over the pub there to barge in, and great big lights in the apexes, inky red lights flashing, silent, 30 miles per hour, and just banked around the thing. So I know it exists. I mean, people, you could call it alien, it could be a mixture, alien or American, or but they do exist, these craft, and the technology is obviously way past what they're letting us know about. So I think this Space Force is to gradually leak out this technology, and well, hopefully, because the truth is being leaked out slowly, because people want to leak it out.
Well, you can't hide this stuff, man. With the internet, everybody is onto this. I've watched so many videos. I've spoken to people that have worked in these kind of programs. I remember a few years ago, 2.5 years ago, when Corey Good came out and he was on Gaia and he was sharing all of this sort of stuff, and I watched some of that, and I remember one day someone booked a healing through our website, and my PA contacted them and they said, this healing isn't for me, it's for Corey Good, and Corey was in hospital at the time, and anyway, he was in a bad way. And I got this message and I was asked to do this healing. So I've gone in to do my healing, and I've seen a guy in a black jumpsuit, and he's inside this big ball, this like electromagnetic ball. It was like some kind of like office with a chair in the middle, but it was a ball. And I've taken myself into this space, but I couldn't go through the ball. And the man had a screen in front of him. It was like an iPad, but it wasn't an iPad. And on the screen there was Corey Good. And they're firing, it's like a computer game, and they're shooting him with these kind of like lights and these lasers, and this is what was making him ill. So I was trying to get inside this ball, but I couldn't, but I was able, with the use of my mind, to disable this thing and kind of malfunction it and stop it. And I actually bumped into Corey at the Conscious Life Expo a few months later and had a chat to him about it at breakfast. But these kind of things happen. I mean, he was coming out and telling people about the secret space problem. They're not going to want to try and harm him and kill him, or make him really, really ill if this stuff isn't true. Many people have been oft killed because they come out and say this sort of stuff. I've had experiences myself. I've seen these beings. I've seen beings come after me just for star magic. I mean, my daughter was riding a horse and I was in Turkey, 18 months ago, or 2 years ago, and these two reptilian beings ripped her off her horse, and in broad daylight in the horse yard, and they're eating her womb, and she phoned me up, and she's, I've tuned in, I've got them off of her. She had, her periods were irregular for over a year. Now we're talking about these metaphysical beings. I mean, number one, they pulled her off of a horse in broad daylight, pushed her up against the gate, and they're eating her womb. And these are like invisible beings, but I mean, she could see them, I could see them, but it actually caused physical pain and disturbances with her sexual organs, I mean, this stuff's real.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So anything folklore, fairy stories, dragons and fairies and dwarves, elves, these are, I've taken pictures of them, I know they're real.
Yeah.
So very much real. So
I mean, I've got pictures on my phone of fairies in our workshops that I've taken, like fairies, golden fairies with wings, flying through people's feet and stuff, like this big, amazing, man.
Yes. The world out there is just so incredible. And that's what people need to wake up to. It's just so amazing. Right, what shall we touch on now? So you in with the conspiracy theories. I mean, the news is there to feed you negative stuff all the time.
Absolutely.
Fear and everything. What do you think of climate change?
I mean, you got to look at these like forest fires in Australia at the moment, and I saw something the other day that apparently there's some forest fires in Japan, and they're saying it's climate change and all this sort of stuff, but we as humans cannot create that much disaster with rubbish and, you know, and the ozone layer, and it's just madness. Climate change is just a front. It's bullshit. I don't believe in it in the slightest. You know, we're talking about this big, huge planet called Earth. She is one powerful, strong being. You know, she is not gonna allow us measly little humans to mess her up like that, to change her climate. She's gonna do what the hell she wants. You know, these icebergs aren't melting, these ice caps aren't melting, the world's not gonna flood because of what we're doing.
Yes, I totally agree.
You know?
I mean, because I research researchers quite a bit, and I look at what scientists are saying, and they say CO2, man-made CO2, does not affect the climate, full stop. It's not an argument. And yet they're pushing this negative agenda, which read up David Icke or any of
Well, it's all distractions, isn't it?
distraction, green taxes, and keep you in fear, of course.
Yeah.
Keep you dependent on someone else, not yourself, and
Absolutely.
outside yourself. And if you put on Facebook, I put someone's promoting it, you know, that it is CO2, we've got to do this. I said, well, my way of thinking is this, you know, the trends that show us is the sea warms up, then 800 years later, then you get the CO2 being warmed up, the sea, it's been released. So the sea is releasing most of the CO2. It's not man-made. But the trends they show is they sort of zoom into it, so it's crossed over like that. So it looks like the Earth's warming and CO2 is going up, but it isn't. There's an 800-year gap, actually.
Yeah.
So you're messing about with trends and everything. And the scientists are pulling it apart, the stuff that they bring out. But they don't get what the scientists are saying. They just say, well, 97% of scientists have said this. But they haven't. And they're still carrying on this agenda, and you've got all these people, you know, promoting it. And they talk about Australia, the the sea coral reef and all that. People coming out and say there's nothing wrong with it at all. And polar bears are increasing. And all this. Yeah, the climate is changing, and all the planets and solar systems have warmed up to a certain degree, they're saying. But that's nothing to do with us. Yeah, we've got to clear up pollution and plastics and plant more trees, and that's all good stuff. And CO2 is our life force, so yes, please, more CO2 to create more oxygen. So it makes a greener planet. So yeah, it's a lot going on out there. But it's very confusing. And like I said, when I put this on Facebook, just explaining this, I was attacked by 2 different people. And they really did attack me, pretty badly. And I wrote back and said, well, I've researched this. How much research have you done? And I said, you must have done nothing. And you're policing me. I can't have an opinion. So you're policing me. Like David Icke always talks about
it. Yeah, there's a lot of bots and robots out there that, you know, just...
get used.
Yeah.
So it's how even entities from outside the person can use them to attack you.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, mind control is massive.
Yes.
Huge. You know, you look at people that have gone and murdered people or shot schools up and, you know, hotels or whatever it is. They can't remember doing it because something took them over.
Yes.
You know, something was controlling them like a robot. You know, our brain is a biological computer. When you know how to tap into it and access it, you can make someone do whatever you want. You can reprogram the human brain just like that, so easily.
I think people like Darren Brown, you know, proves it time and again in his shows. You know, Darren Brown and
the hypno guy. Yeah.
And he gets people to murder people. He's filmed it, and he might get 4 people, and the first one he shows that goes through, they don't actually push this person over the top of the building. It was, and but the other 3 said they did actually to get, you know, some money or whatever it was, can't remember now, but they worked on them for a couple of days, I think, and it could be a woman or a bloke on top of the building having a party, and the bloke's got a harness on and the stuff down there, and they actually pushed the people off. That's how easy it is to do. But they always said that you can't be hypnotised to do something against your will. Yes, you can, quite easily. So yeah, it's an amazing world out there. So And what's your view on like pharmaceutical companies? Have you got a view there, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, pharmaceutical companies. I mean, I was arrested 2 years ago for healing people with cancer. Well, I had a client in India who made a video, sent me the footage. I edited it up and put it online, and it was a testimonial because she had cancer, and then it was gone. So I put the video on YouTube and it said alternative cancer treatment. And apparently, according to the Cancer Act of 1939, you can't use the word treatment and cancer together, or healing cancer, or curing cancer, yeah, all that sort of stuff. I didn't know. So anyway, I got arrested by the advertising agency. So anyway, I got a friend of mine to look into it, and he went and found out who was funding the case. And it was the cancer charities. Yeah. So the advertising people don't really give a shit, and but the cancer charities do, because they don't want people like me being able to take away their business. The doctors get a $5,000 to $12,000 commission just for administering chemotherapy. Big business. So the pharmaceutical companies are powerful. Drugs, we don't really need them. Doctors and nurses, I think, play a vital role. I mean, there's certain times can be a serious accident. I had a guy, he was on his push bike, and he came up to a roundabout, and a car came round the roundabout, and he didn't see the car. I don't know how he didn't see the car, but he went and hit the car, and the little back quarter light windows, his head went through it. His nose went into the back of his, right back up here. His face was smashed in, all his neck was broken. He was kind of hanging out the car like this. He pushed himself back out. Anyway, he got airlifted to Frenchay Hospital in Bristol. And I knew his girlfriend. And he was in this kind of like glass ward. I've never seen anything like it, like real high, like a intensive care type place. So it was glass, so people could see him from every angle. Anyway, his girlfriend got in contact, and I went down, and no one was allowed in to see him because he was in such a bad way. So I had to pretend, he was from Romania, and I had to pretend that I was his Romanian brother. So anyway, I've cocked up all this story, gone down there, they've let me into the ward, and I'm kind of working and healing and doing all this sort of stuff. And anyway, I finished the healing session, and I've looked out the window, and the clouds had formed a cross, like a Jesus cross. Crazy. Then this guy had broken back, broken pretty much everything. He had tubes in his mouth, he couldn't breathe, blah, blah, blah. Before I went down there, what the doctors had done is they'd cut his skull open, pulled his head forward, and pushed his nose back out, because it was so far in the back of his head. So his nose was kind of being mended, and he had all these staples around here, but the rest of him was fucked. Anyway, I did what I had to do, left. The next day when he woke up, he just took the tubes out, they x-rayed his back, there was no broken bones anymore, his body was mended. Wow. Now, this is one of those situations where you really needed the paramedics, you needed the ambulance service, you needed the doctors. There were certain things that they had to do. They had to stabilize him, rescue him, stop him bleeding to death, whatever they had to do. I mean, I saw the picture of him, and like, he took a picture of himself. I mean, he was in a bad way, but when he was in the air ambulance, he took a selfie. And it is the craziest, but it's on YouTube on one of the videos. He's a mess. But like, if it wasn't for the doctors and nurses and the air ambulances, they'd have never, he wouldn't have lived. So they played a very important role, but they weren't able to do what was necessary afterwards without drugs and stuff. So I've gone in and did what I did. They told him he was going to be in hospital for a long time. He was back at work in 5 weeks. After that serious accident, he was out of hospital, I think in like 10 days or something. No broken bones, but they'd x-rayed him before and he was broken to smithereens. So what I feel is that healers and doctors should be working together. Absolutely. Sometimes an operation is needed, but a healer can come in and hold space during that operation and speed up the healing process. We should be working together. The pharmaceutical industry themselves pushing their drugs, I mean, they're the biggest drug pushers in the world. Worse than any cocaine, heroin dealer on the planet. They're the biggest drug smugglers. drug pushers, drug dealers.
They are. I mean, we did speak to American director of one of the big pharmas. He was into his Chinese medicine, so I asked him, well, you get all your free medicine anyway. He just looked seriously and said, never touch any of that stuff. It was quite serious. So, yeah, it's just good money to look after the employees and everything. And but what they're doing is not truth, let's say. And they say they do. We're here for money, and they'll make it quite clear. So, but I never give to cancer research. Just don't believe in them.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at, I mean, a few years back, me and my daughter went to the Philippines, and it was just after the Typhoon Haiyan had hit, and we went there to do some humanitarian work. I spent a few weeks building houses and all this sort of stuff, and anyway, when we were there, the local charities, not the international charities, but the local charities that we kind of partnered to do this work, they were saying to us, like, as soon as it happened, Red Cross came in, this other charity came in, you could see all their big banners, they drapes them over buildings, and they said what they do is they come in and they put all of their stuff, their logos, all that sort of stuff, and then what they do is they raise money off the back of it, but that money just goes to buy new cars, it goes to their wages, none of it really gets down to the people. No. You know, so I feel like, you know, cancer, and that's the same. And the thing is as well, like if you look at cancer, like it's a big topic, and a country's GDP is partly measured on how much cancer's in the country. So the more cancer, the richer it is. So it's in their best interest for people to have cancer. So that if you look around the towns and stuff, and you drive down the road, it's like billboards, breast cancer this, cancer charity this, and people are reading this, and subliminally, cancer, it goes into them. It's downloaded into their cells. Words can program the DNA. At a cellular level, we can be programmed by words. So when people are reading these things, this advertising, they're spending so much on it because it's creating more of it. You know?
I totally agree, and it's the big C as well.
Yeah.
You know, big capital letter, you know, bold, and yes, terrible. Right, is there anything else you want to say in this part?
I mean, I could speak about all sorts of different things on this, but at the end of the day, like, you know, it's good for people to be aware of it, but we don't want to focus our attention on it. We need to know that it's there because we need to be aware of all the facets of reality, but we need to turn our attention to what is important. And that is being right here in our hearts, loving unconditionally all people's situations, raising the vibration of our own beings and helping to spark and that kind of like divine light of everyone else around us, and just keep doing what we love and what makes us happy, and just exuberate happiness and love and focus on that, because the more we can do it, the more we're going to affect everybody else. The vibration of one positive human can counteract 800,000 negative humans. That's massive. So if we can just be positive in ourselves and just work on ourselves and keep raising the vibration, we're going to help so many more people.
Yeah, I agree.
Stay away from the bullshit, focus on what's important.
Yeah.
Love, baby.
Thank you, Joe. That's the end of all. That's amazing. God, he did that, didn't he? That's complex, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got where all the beings that live on the different stars, who they all are, like just everything. How many light years away from Earth and...
Sorry.